Morning. So Dan has covered, I think, in an extraordinarily effective and fun and interesting way, I want those slides, about why we're doing what we're doing. And I think that my job is to tell you a little bit about how we're doing it and what specifically was done with this open government initiative. I'm a dangerous person in this audience because I'm fundamentally a systems engineer with a mic. Which means that the kinds of things that I talk about tend to be sort of in the weeds, and then we, made this connection and we made it in this way. But the most important thing of the many fun and interesting things that Dan just said was the notion of getting to yes. I work at an agency, the VA, which is notorious for explaining to you how they're not going to be able to do what it is that you're asking them to do. They're very creative at that. They're very, very gifted. And they've been doing it for about 50 years this way. And in my entry interview with the secretary, he said, hey, listen, man, I have no idea who you are. Read the resume, it sounds like you might work out. But here's the deal. I'm the only guy in the agency who's allowed to say no. So your job, my job, is to figure out how to get to yes. And this is really sort of the umbrella, it's the rubric under which we now all work at the VA, transforming this agency, which, let's be frank, was an adversarial, or had an adversarial relationship to our primary stakeholders, the veterans, or at least it was perceived that way, and sometimes for good reasons, to an advocacy role for veterans. And, so we can sit, sort of around the secretary and sing kumbaya and say, yes, we really should do this. This is an extraordinarily important thing. This is why people voted for President Obama, just to get folks like us who want to say yes into office. And then if you can't convey that message down into the, get this, 300,000 person bureaucracy, you're done. You're there for about a year. Thank you very much for the nice flowers, and gosh, see you later, and nice try. Maybe your successor will do better. So what's the point? Why is it that we would turn to apps.gov, to IdeaScale, which was phenomenally helpful? I want to be very, very clear that we had a tremendous experience with these guys, but I also want to emphasize something else that Dan said, which is there are a lot of really good tools out there, and you should know that we want to be careful about making sure that you understand what we did, because you all paid for it, thanks very much. But we also want you to know that we are fully aware that there were lots of other ways of doing it. So what's the point? Well, what we really needed to do, and this is slightly now different than what Dan was just telling you, because he was explaining about how it is that government can set up the infrastructure to solicit citizen engagement, to create an environment where that's interesting, fun, important, and here comes the punchline, impactful. Sure. My job, at least for the time being, is to do all that. I absolutely full-throated support of all that. I had, frankly, a bigger problem because it was proximate. All my stakeholders kind of work around me, and I need to get 300,000 people a little bit more interested in doing things in a new and better way. What were the things you do? Efficient, effective, make it interesting, make it fun, make sure that they understand that they're not just kind of there to make sure nothing bad happens today. We want to start making some good stuff happen too. You have to be very serious about providing that channel. You have to be present, you have to be accessible, and today, accessibility is not just, oh yeah, you can call me direct, and by the way, many people do, or you can send me an email and I'll personally respond to you, no problem with that. You have to be present on the web. Yeah? The new generation of soldiers, and by the way, not just the new generation of soldiers, if you were to look at the demographic of our usage across the different media channels that you have, everything from a veteran who just doesn't have access to even a telephone, physically has a relationship with us by coming into the regional office, to young soldiers coming back from one of the theaters of war today, it ends up that many of them will come to us through the web, right? You sort of think that there'd be sort of an age demographic there that exists to a certain extent, but probably less than you would imagine. So you have to be present. And you have to constantly convey the message. I come from a research environment where there was a certain sort of mundane and even pedestrian moniker that you get is like, well, I just keep on saying the same things over and over again. So I was frankly a year ago yesterday making my own life hard, but like, no, we got to say it a little bit differently this time, and you have to, that's what we said yesterday, and you want to kind of convey the message in a different way. It's absolutely wrong. You just got to say it over and over and over again, and all of a sudden, you get folks coming to you on Facebook, and all of a sudden, you get folks writing you emails, and all of a sudden, you get 50,000 of your 300,000 person employees participating in some way in your idea and innovation challenge. So if you have nothing else from the first couple minutes of the talk, we're pretty damn serious about doing this, and we're going to start making some changes. So the VBA, the Veterans Benefits Administration, is one of the two big agencies at the VA. Almost everybody has heard of the VA. I say now somewhat tongue-in-cheek, I had to look it up on a Google map to show up for my first day of work. I did not know. I did not serve. I was very keen to try to find a way to give back, and certainly to folks who did wear a uniform in my name. But so everybody knows what it is, but nobody really knows what it does. So it ends up that we're divided functionally, at least from an economic perspective, into two large agencies and lots of support agencies. Let me tell you about the two big ones. One of them is the hospitals. Everybody's heard of a VA hospital. You've probably seen one. You may have even gone to one. And the VHA, the Veterans Health Administration, has done a really remarkable thing. They have effectively gone from worst to best in terms of delivering quality health care to the 6 million unique patients that they see every year now. The 25 or 24.5 million veterans, the people who are qualified in some way to get services from us, but 6.5 or something like that do on an annual basis. This is everything from, hey, I need a hearing aid, to something very, very serious, acute conditions that can become life-threatening that we need to face. So more on that in a second. The VBA has been in the news a lot recently. The VBA is the agency that delivers claims benefits to service-disabled or service-connected injuries. So if you, everything from, you used to be an artillery gunner, and now your hearing has gone down a lot, and we can demonstrate that. There's lots of science that says, hey, listen, exposure to loud noises over a prolonged period of years isn't going to work out for your ears so well when you're older, and these guys are entitled to hearing aids, okay? To other kinds of service-connected disabilities where it's a very complicated Byzantine claims process. Here finally comes the punchline, all based on paper. We're doing the whole thing. If you walk into one of these places, I've done this now about a dozen times, you feel like you're walking into Raiders of the Lost Ark. I swear to God, it's like mountains of filing cabinets. And as I leave, I'm known now for saying, think plants. Right? We're going to turn all these filing cabinets. True story, they have to reinforce Class A, you guys are paying for all this, so you should care, Class A office space in cities that you know and heard of. These are not small rural towns that folks generally don't visit. These are large places with high-rises, and the government goes in and pays to reinforce the floors because the filing cabinets are so heavy because of the amount of paper that we move. You feel like you're walking into something out of the 1950s or 60s. So we said, hey, listen, we're serious about solving this problem. We've got some, architectural ideas. They're sensible, they're coherent, they're cohesive. I've done this before. But you guys do this every single day. How are we, in fact, going to be able to identify everything from this is a stupid rule to this is a stupid form to, geez, did you ever hear about this application because it would accelerate the process better? Depending upon how you count, we have 1 million claims in backlog right now. That's a lot. It ends up that that's a little bit unfair. That's unfair to the VBA, but it gets the point across. It's actually a little bit lower if you kind of say, well, some of these claims move quickly, and some of these guys have different conditions that we need to care about. But 1 million is a number that sticks in your mind, right? And here comes the even worse part of that story. They're waiting 6 months to 3 years to even hear from us. So you're coming back from theater or war where you're used to, GPS receiver in your left hand and your cell phone in your right, and something awful has happened, and you're coming to the VBA to get your service-connected disability payment, and we'll get back to you. That doesn't seem like a fair deal. At least it's not what I would have signed up for, and it's not what I think the soldiers should either. So we went out to the employees of the VBA and said, look, you guys do this every single day. What should we be thinking about? So this is a 20,000-person sub-agency of the 300,000 that work at the VA. It's still pretty large. It's about half our budget, not because we spend so much money on the 20,000 people, but because the amount of money that filters through them. We got 3,000 ideas, actually a little bit more. By the way, we used a different tool on this one. We used something called Kitling. And we finally got 10 ideas through I would say, a very transparent, collaborative, methodical process. Craig from Craigslist was one of our judges. Those 10 projects have now been chosen. I can walk you through the list. Oh, well, first we're going to fix this form, and then we're going to buy this tool. That's not what the interesting thing is here. It is interesting. If you're a veteran, it's really interesting. If you're a veteran waiting for your claim, it's fantastically interesting. For this purpose, for this audience, for Dan, it was about the process, right? It was all about making things transparent, making things collaborative, making things participatory. In this case, my audience were those 20,000. Now, I come from this world a little bit. I bet you would have guessed, 20,000 people, maybe 5% would have attached. That 5% would have been 5 times my expectation. We're up at around a third. That's fabulous. That's unheard of. I'd never seen anything like this before. A couple of weeks ago, we did this all over again. This time we did use IdeaScale, going off of apps.gov. And so thanks, great idea. Of the 200,000 people who work at the VHA, remember VA is sort of the umbrella organization, you've got this insurance company effectively, and you've got this hospital system effectively. The hospital is VHA. And here we got 45,000 participants, 6,500 ideas. Actually, it was more than 50,000 of those guys, so it was more like 500,000. I think we may have dropped to 0 there. But that's not what's important. What's important is the collaboration, the participation, and the message that we in the leadership of the VA are trying to convey to the rank and file, and the response that we're getting. This is the most important thing of all. Remember, you're talking about an agency that is moribund. You're talking about an agency that's run by folks that kind of didn't really want to change or weren't really sure of the need to change, or at least that was the moniker. You're talking about an agency that at least the perception, true or not true, it doesn't matter. The perception of the public is adversarial. You're trying to turn them into advocates. Hey, we got 50,000 advocates to do things better out of a 300,000 person agency, and we're just getting started, right? This is just fabulous stuff. So I am very pleased to announce at this conference that we have now officially released, I think literally as I'm standing here, the press release is going out. 26 of the 6,500 ideas were chosen. Again, it's things like how come we don't do better longitudinal studies with the health records that are part of the VISTA system, VISTA being the electronic medical records tool that we use, arguably still one of the best EMR systems in the world, to how can we make patient compliance to therapies better? How do we know what the outcomes are? These things are just tremendous. Again, it's not so much about the outcomes. The outcomes are important. I'm going to get measured on them. It's not like I don't care. What I care about is reaching into the agency in a clear, transparent, authentic way and saying, look, we're listening. We want you to be talking to us. We want you to be telling us what we should be doing. So if you add up these two experiences, if you add up the VBA and the VHA, more than 50,000 people have participated, and I got more than 10,000 ideas on my 366th day of work. I'll be busy. We've got plenty going on. This is a very, very cool thing. So now we get to the good part. These two initiatives, the VBA Innovation Competition and the VHA/OIT, sorry for the alphabet soup here, I'll explain in a second, So the benefits thing that we did first last fall and the hospital thing that we just are announcing today are part of a grander scheme. This is the so-called VA Innovation Initiative, or VAI2. And here's the difference between everything that we've done so far and what we're about to start doing. Everything that we've done so far for good and constructive reasons, for stakeholder benefit, for taxpayer efficiency, and for political, or I would say even moral responsiveness, is important, but we started with ourselves. We wanted to kind of walk before we ran here. Now we're going to do the whole thing all over again, and we're going to go to the public. We're going to go to the public in an organized, structured way and say, okay, we've got 1,000 ideas. What are yours, right? What tools are out there that we should be using that we're not? What services are out there that would benefit, that you could plug and replace with what we're doing right now? What things should we be thinking about that we don't know yet? How can we do research better? How can we do service delivery better? How can we make our buildings more beautiful? Lots and lots and lots of things. So the VAI2 is just getting launched. The VHA and the VBA competitions were the first elements of that process. It wasn't like we were greeted with warm and open arms when we first got there. But here's the cool thing, it's a true thing. The guys who don't want to do it the most are the guys who understand it the best when you finally convince them. Sometimes convincing them involves violence and weapons, but it does work. And they're military people, so they get that. But you can't imagine the enthusiasm of, people are coming up to me, literally coming up to me on the street and saying, when's the next one? I missed the deadline, I'm such an idiot. And I just, like last night, I want to do this. When can we do this? We're going to do more of these. There was a tremendous amount of bureaucracy about working with the retainer on who gets to buy the tool and where is the tool installed and why do I really have to do this and who's actually going to pay for it and who's going to fund these things when you're done. And there's a line I wasn't as careful as you were. I didn't actually get the book cover. I kind of know about that. But there's a new book out by a fabulous author named Daniel Pink. And he explains about how we should be working with boundaries and not within them. And so what I'm trying to do is sort of focus the attention of the people that I work with and say, listen, I know that it's a problem, and I know that we've never done this before, and I know that dogs and cats will live together and the world will break in 5 pieces. But imagine what's going to happen on the other side of this. Imagine what it's going to feel like when we have these 10,000 ideas and we're going to be able to do 20 of them. I know that there's not going to be all, and I don't even know what I don't know, right? I don't know what the land, what the gold mine is of the other, 9,950 that I never even thought about that carefully because I kind of have to focus my attention on the one that finally got chosen. But let's start worrying about outcomes, and let's start worrying a little bit less, just a little bit less about the process. As long as the process is ethical, fair, legal, and transparent, I'm only going to worry about getting these new ideas. This is an agency, and I don't think that we're very unique. We're very large, but I don't think we're very unique about sort of the delamination that sometimes occurs. It's, by the way, not unique to public service, the delamination that occurs between public sector and private sector. And they were just delighted that we were asking. And my almost last remark is, get used to ambiguity. What do I mean by that? Well, we were very, very clear about what we want to hear about claims forms, and we want to hear about the CPRS interface to Vista and how we can do a better resource program. Yeah, sure. Great, we want to hear about that. I absolutely positively insisted that there be a category in both competition which was open. We called it the Babe Ruth category. It was, point to the left field wall and see if you can hit it. And it worked out really well. So we used these structured templates. If you've ever talked to a venture capital investor, a high-tech venture guy who's shamelessly borrowed from that kind of thinking. And we could say, listen, we can still march forward even if we don't have the answers to all these questions yet, as long as we believe enough in the process that it will be, again, transparent, collaborative, participatory, legal, all these things that we kind of agreed to do together. We're going to be able to work through these things even if we can't get to them yet. So here is my last slide, and here is what we effectively convinced the secretary to do, which is help us decide who gets to submit ideas. So if you're coming from a government agency, we've got a lot to say about that. Who gets to participate and why. And I say this, because we have this special tool and nobody else gets to use it. Exactly not that. No, it's when we were talking about how do we fix claims processing, a lot of people have a lot of ideas. I was really targeting that community because these are the guys who are using DOS-like applications that they can't cut and paste one screen to the other. We're using applications where you, as a stakeholder, would come to the VA, type in your stuff. It looks like a modern form. It looks like we're finally going to the 20th century. We would take that form, print it, and then hire somebody to type it into another system. True story. So we're trying to figure out, how to solve these problems, and we need to ask certain people in part just so that they know that we're paying attention. And last but not least is, who gets to actually allocate the money? And, you don't want to end up on the front page of a national newspaper saying, yet another way that corruption has corroded the system, and we're spending hundreds of millions of dollars, which we are, on new and innovative ways of delivering these services, but it ended up that it went to Peter's brother-in-law. So that you have to be kind of careful about that. I share this not because I want to tell you about the Mount Everest that we climbed. I share this because I want you to know that we know. I want you to know that we're paying attention to it. And I want you to know that we actually came up with some pretty creative answers to the questions. So, thank you very much for inviting me. Thanks very much for your excellent talk. And we'd be glad to answer questions.